Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, October 23rd. I'm Mark Dent here with Rob Litterst, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. For nearly 2 decades, the NFL has played football in countries like England, Germany, and for the first time this season, Brazil. Next up, Spain, and then potentially after that, Ireland. But things are starting to change with the way the NFL is growing internationally, both in Europe, in South America, and in Asia. So what will it take to get pro football to be played on the Emerald Isle, and how else might we see the NFL expanding in the next few years? We're going to dive into all that in a moment, but first, let's give you today's hits and headlines in business and tech. Starting off, we got a Peloton story. Everyone's favorite bike, or maybe everyone's favorite bike, at least during the pandemic, is starting to bet on everyone's favorite grocery store. Ever since wealthy young professionals returned to their offices and equinoxes, Peloton, of course, has struggled to sell its very expensive stationary bikes. Its stock has fallen more than 90% since its peak in 2021. So, that grocery store, it's teaming up with Costco. Costco is going to start selling Peloton's Bike Plus for about $2,000 in 300 of its US stores, as well as online for at least a limited time. We will see what this does for Peloton, but Costco does seem to be kind of up their alley, right, Rob?
Yeah, I'm super curious to see how this works out. Like, it doesn't seem, at least right now, like there are any special deals or discounts or anything like that. It's just literally like buy your Peloton in Costco. And maybe it is just like seeing that Peloton in person that's going to push some people to buy. But I do think you're right. I think there's a lot of alignment in the Venn diagram of Costco customers and Peloton's target market. There's probably a pretty solid middle ground right there.
I mean, the question is if that middle ground is people who've already bought the Peloton and maybe already put it on Craigslist or put it in their attic.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, just to be blunt, people who shop at Costco tend to be affluent, and people who buy Pelotons tend to be affluent. So, I mean, it certainly makes a lot of sense.
It really does. And I mean, if I'm Peloton, you've already kind of pulled out all the stops at this point. I feel like you got to start trying some new strategies with brick and mortar. And I think Costco is a great place to start. It's probably the most loyal customer base in the world.
Yeah. You know, sticking around the grocery store, everything you want to buy kind of space, Walmart is rolling out a prescription delivery service in 6 states with a goal of delivering to doorsteps in 49 states by the end of this January. That service will cost $10 per delivery and looks to grow what is already around 12% of Walmart's annual revenue in the health and wellness category. In Meta news, Meta has banned accounts that track celebrity jets, which includes Jack Sweeney's 38 accounts. He, of course, became famous for tracking the flight data of people like Elon Musk and Taylor Swift. Now, this data, of course, is publicly available, but Meta's oversight board deemed such accounts a risk to public figures, and I deem this a risk to free speech. In other speech news, actually, Blade Runner 2049 production company Alcon Entertainment is suing Elon Musk, Tesla, and Warner Brothers Discovery for allegedly using AI-generated images of the film during Tesla's robotaxi launch event. The suit claims that Alcon denied Warner Brothers Discovery's request to use any images and clips from the film, and it does not want any affiliation with any company that Musk owns. All right, back to the grocery store space. Whole Foods released its top 10 food and beverage trends for 2025. They include international snacks, Asian fusion, crunchy snacks, teas, sourdough, aquatic plants, which means like seaweed apparently, high protein foods, hydration boosters, and alternative waters, as well as products that come in sustainable packaging. This is a very Whole Foods list here, to be sure.
It literally looks like they did a comparison and said, what do we sell more of than every other grocery store? And then just came up with this list. The international snacks, I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Have you ever had those sriracha peas?
I've never seen or heard of them, but they sound good. Yeah.
Delicious. Crunchy snacks, always a win. I mean, if you go to like Trader Joe's, they have like a million different flavored nuts and they're all absolutely delicious. Sourdough, have definitely seen a big rise in sourdough and I'm a huge fan. Aquatic plants, I've tried this dry seaweed. I want with every fiber of my being to like it because it's supposedly so good for you and it's like really good for the environment, but I can't get around how bad it tastes. But yeah, everything else seems, pretty Whole Foodsy. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Things that you can't buy at Whole Foods. Those tend to be my snacks.
Yeah, I like sitting at my computer and putting a bugle on each finger and pretending that I'm like a Halloween witch or something like that. Exactly.
Very timely, very seasonal, Rob. Okay, all right. Finally, there's been a lot of good news about inflation moderating in the US over the last few months. And now there's some pretty good global news about inflation. The IMF said yesterday that, quote, the global battle against inflation has been largely won. So the IMF expects global inflation to fall to about 3.5% by the end of next year, which is just less than what inflation had averaged over the last 20 years or so before the pandemic.
Remember how marketing used to be? Content was simpler to create, leads were easier to capture, and we weren't all spread so thin. Bottom line, marketing used to be fun. But with HubSpot's newly launched marketing and content hubs, you'll generate better content, more leads, and next level results so marketing can be fun again. With tools like Content Remix to turn existing assets into all new pieces in just a click, lead scoring to shine a light on the leads most likely to purchase, and Analytics Suite to tackle out-of-the-box reports and KPIs with a goldmine of AI-powered insights, it's quick to get you results. It's easy to use, it connects all your teams and data, so put the fun back in your marketing funnel with HubSpot. Visit HubSpot.com to get started for free.
All right, let's get to the main story, which is about NFL. It's football season. This is, one of the biggest businesses in America. And, well, it's trying to be an even bigger business internationally. Way back in 2007, the NFL played its first game in London. And this year, after lots of European games and games in Mexico, since then, the NFL played in Brazil. And next year, it's going to play in Spain. Rob, how do you kind of see the NFL continuing to sort of shape its international product?
It's so interesting to me that they are pushing hard here. I mean, on one hand, I think it makes a ton of sense. They've kind of like reached their market cap potential in the US. They're already kind of maxed out. US viewers and fans watch the NFL constantly. It's the most popular sport in our country. Mm-hmm. So naturally, you want to go abroad. But it's just so interesting to me because I feel like all of these places where they're going, they don't actually have representation among the players. And like nobody really plays American football like growing up. So it's always been so curious and interesting to me that these games sell out in London. I guess when you have, only one of them coming a year, enough people are going to go. But it does seem like these games make a splash. I know like Mexico, there's a decent fan base for the NFL.
And decent amount of like youth football actually in Mexico as well.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I wonder, like, yes, it is the most popular sport in the US and probably viewership and number of fans has probably come close to peaking domestically, which to be clear is a very good peak that any other brand would do everything to have. But one thing that I like to throw out, roughly 6 in 10 Americans follow sports very little or not at all.
Wow.
Yeah, sports are huge. The NFL, of course, is the biggest one. But there is a lot of room, technically. Even the Super Bowl, you get 120 million viewers for it. That's less than half the country.
Yeah.
So, that said, though, I think the cap of the sports fans that do exist, I think the NFL has reached it. And now it's obviously thinking it can get more in Europe, as well as South America, as well as Asia. Now, one thing that the New York Times pointed out, which just did a story about the NFL and the possibility of it playing in Ireland next year, where there has never been a game, is that the strategy has changed. Back in 2007, when they were first going into Europe, the NFL was like leading this. They were like, all right, we got to do this. It's a big top-down kind of thing. Now it's actually more of like a bottom-up sort of strategy where you have individual teams that are trying to build relationships with fans in specific countries, which I think it's a really interesting way to do it. It's clearly a new strategy. It's not going to be one where it's like, let's just, bring the NFL here. It's like, let's make these people be fans of a team.
Honestly, like this move makes a ton of sense if you're the owner of an NFL franchise, right? Just broadening the fan base.
Yeah.
Creating a more durable moat around your brand and figuring out new ways to generate revenue all over the world. I think, sports owners are getting smarter and smarter, and they're all business people. And they want to figure out the way that they can have the best exit possible. And I think international expansion helps that narrative quite a bit.
For sure. And I think that this strategy of having like the teams kind of build their own followings overseas and in South America and places like that also speaks to like the NFL, perhaps, and maybe I'll be proven wrong. I think coming to grips with the fact that they can't have an expansion team in Europe or even an expansion 2 or 3 teams, which is something that Roger Goodell has talked about for years. And even just 2 years ago said, hey, maybe we can have a whole United Kingdom division with 4 teams.
Crazy.
I mean, sure, that would be really cool and it would be lucrative potentially. But it's like, yeah, that is still a 7-hour flight.
Yep.
Just to get to New York.
Exactly.
And that is still an enormously long flight to get to Kansas City or to LA or something like that. And you can't do it.
They added a game to the schedule a few years ago. And like, if you watch the NFL, injuries are crazy right now. Like, it seems like every player is hurt from week to week. Like, if you play fantasy football like I do, you notice like 3 or 4 people on your roster come out of every single week questionable for the next day. So I think you need to take like that actual in between rest period seriously. And if you're going to have people flying on these like huge international flights, and then you're going to have Thursday games, and Lord knows they're probably going to have like Wednesday games and Tuesday games like soon enough here. I don't know. I think the NFL needs to just protect the players more, because they're the one sport where I feel like players come out of their NFL career in shambles. And I think anything they can do to protect these guys a little bit and protect their bodies and their brains is good.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so it looks like the next place for an NFL game is most likely going to be Ireland. And potentially the Steelers have been looking to have a game there for a long time. The Rooney family owners have long roots, if you go back to the 19th century, of living in Ireland before they immigrated to the US. So that could be the next spot. I've actually seen an American football game in Ireland before. I think, what was the first college football game of all time played in Ireland, Penn State versus Central Florida in 2014.
That is amazing. Who won?
Penn State did. It was a great comeback. Phenomenal times, great experience. I do think American football should keep going to Ireland.
Love it.
All right. I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter, so if you're not subscribed, please go get signed up at thehustle.co/email and follow us on Instagram if you're feeling it at The Hustle Daily. We will see you tomorrow.
If you're struggling to keep up with all the latest innovations in tech and what they'll mean for your life, TED Tech has you covered. Get ahead of the curve with digestible downloads on some of the biggest ideas in technology, from AI and virtual reality to clean tech. Find TED Tech wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I've been listening to this awesome podcast lately. It's called Hustle and Flowchart, hosted by Joe Fear, and it's brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. The Hustle and Flowchart podcast with Joe Fear is all about how to build a business so it gives you the freedom and fuel for your life. You can join Joe as he discusses systems, mindset tweaks, reframes, and strategies for entrepreneurs, and really anyone, to be honest, to enjoy the process of being in business and also having fun. This isn't just for the entrepreneur looking to make $1 billion business, but it's also for somebody who's looking to build systems that work for you so you can make more money than you need just by working part-time, essentially. I was actually just listening to an episode he had on Kareen Walsh behind the app Hey Kareen, and Kareen talked a lot about how to scale your business effectively, especially if you're just a startup, especially if you're just an app startup specifically. It's an awesome episode. I would recommend it to anyone. You can check them out, and you can listen to the Hustle and Flowchart wherever you get your podcasts.